Well, hi. I'm going to talk about this subject today. Um, and I'm doing that so that I can find these things because I keep losing them and it's all messed up. We're trying to get it straightened out. So this is my Grandpa Ricky scarf. And today I want to do something because I feel like I'm at home and I'm old and stuff I can't do anymore. And I want to support the protests that are going on. And I do have some things to say about them. I've been to a lot of them. And I believe in free speech and free expression. But I also believe in responsibility. And I believe in not being ashamed of being ashamed. And I believe in not being ashamed of suffering. And I've been getting insights for a long time about how to suffer. So many people are embarrassed about being suffering. They don't like anybody who's suffering. They don't see that anything they do causes suffering, and they see anybody who suffers as weak, and then they're frightened by their weakness and they attack them some more. So this is my perception that I'm sharing about this whole issue of protesting. And you know, I don't like the word protesting because it has some anger in it. But I like the idea of see me, hear me, drink me in, know my pain, know my suffering, uh, know my love, know my anger, know my hurt. Um, It was like the Mother Teresa once said, I think something like, I wouldn't go to an anti-war protest or an anti-war march, but I would go to a peace march. And so I know that people feel much more unheard than they have in a long time. And this whole crazy idea of the majority rules, whoever wins the government, by hook or by crook or legitimately, it's a bit insane. Consensus is a much better idea. But how can 7 billion people agree to something? Well, having our own mortality and the mortality of our loved ones and no enemy in sight, it's just like, my God, these viruses, they're part of our whole world. So I want to tell you a couple of things that have been very important to me and in my history of going to marches and trying to be heard. Um, and one of them comes from my dear friend David Tucker, who's suffering a lot right now. Um, uh, and he's with an organization called the Pachamama Alliance. And the Pachamama Alliance was started by spirits in the jungle, in the rainforest, and by one tribe, actually a number of tribes. Um, and So David worked for them and goes down there a lot. And I don't know if he was at this one particular protest the story comes from, but the indigenous people particularly were protesting, were marching, trying to get the attention to the fact that the president was doing everything that the American government wanted him to do. I suspect because he was blackmailed, and you can read a book called The Confessions of an Economic Hitman to show you how that's done. But this president was a good guy, but he started having to make these decisions that really hurt indigenous people and hurt the environment and everything. So they had a protest. People came from all over to the capital city, which I forget right now. And the first day of the protest, there were mainly peaceful, like 99% peaceful marchers. And there was 1% who were aggressive and smashing things up and really angry. And the police, hitting people, and it was a riot. And these guys, these bad guys, were arrested, and they were taken away. And lots of people were taken away. Some of them weren't the bad guys, but if somebody whacks you over the head with a stick or a weapon or something, you can get pretty reactively defensive right off the bat. So the protest was going on and on and on. And somebody came back and said, I followed the police vehicles, and they went back to the police station, but the people didn't go in to the police station. I think they work for the police or the army or whoever it was. And so the organizers of the march, they met and they made a strategy and made it consensually. And their strategy they did the next day. So the next day, things were arranged so that if anybody saw somebody acting up, somebody promoting violence, going to throw something through a store window, steal something like that, they were immediately surrounded by peaceful men. Most of these people were men. There were some women, and they would be surrounded and kidded and talked to and stuff. But they really wouldn't be allowed to make everybody think that the march was a violent riot. And the women in the group, they went and they were at the line of contact with the police and the army. And the police and the army, had shown they didn't mind hitting women. And if they did mind, and I suspect they did mind inside, but they couldn't admit it outside. Because if a police officer or a National Guard person is seen to be nice to the protesters or being kind or something, they usually get mistreated by their fellow officers and certainly by their superiors and certainly by the politicians who are saying, control them, put it down, stop it at all costs. And so this story goes that these women were up against the soldiers and the police, and the women said, you certainly are able to beat me up and able to hit me and hurt me, but I want you to remember that I could be your daughter, I could be your mother, I could be your sister, I could be your cousin. Maybe I was your favorite teacher. And so let's just make this as peaceful as we can. We want to protect you, and we want you to protect us. And those people who are acting up, that's not where most of us are. That's not who we are. And I believe the women were talking to the soldiers about how tough it was. And how tough it was on their families, because they were probably being affected by these changes. And they were human with one another. And the soldiers eventually said, we're not going to do this. And they actually joined the protest. And very shortly after that, the president was finished. Because the army wasn't, the Navy, all these, they weren't going to protect the president. And they just said, come on, it's time you left. We need a new president. And unfortunately, the same thing happened again. Guy starts off, good news. He's oppressed, coerced, sucked in by a bunch of people. And this is true in all kinds of governments. And I'm looking forward to the day when everybody's got their eyes open and say, hey, I want you to be free. I want you to be free to march. But I want you to make sure that everybody else is free. So please, organizers of marches, please make sure that you also protect the police and that you convince the protesters to protect the private property. Don't go and burn cars and steal bicycles and all that kind of stuff. No, that's old style. That's coming from the past. If you see somebody angry, know that they're suffering inside and they're not comfortable suffering. If somebody's angry, they're probably terrified and they don't know what else to do. And so it's like, if somebody's angry, the worst thing you can do is get angry back at them because like, we're not animals anymore. We're not, dogs fighting over a bone. We're human beings and we've got to come together. And it's like we are coming together. We're learning, my God. I've seen miracles where National Guard and police are doing the symbols of, hey, I hear you. I don't want to hurt you. I salute your suffering. I honor your suffering. And now I hope we're going to get, I honor your suffering and I honor your strength. And I honor the fact that you're vulnerable on the outside and you've got a strong back and you're going to keep standing up. And my favorite saying lately, and this is my parting thing, is Costco. I'm putting it at the bottom of all my notes. And it's advice to me when I write that too. And that is, keep on, staying calm, and carrying on. Costco. So Costco to you, and please protest, but do it in a responsible way. And remember, if somebody's throwing bricks through windows in protest, they're just feeling really poor and they don't know the impact that their action, the suffering that it's causing. And they think they're the only ones who are suffering, and they're not. We all are. Okay, so thank you very much, and please do what you can to get your voice or your idea out there. And if somebody has screwed up and messed up and hurt you, just realize, part of them feels sad and guilty and ashamed. So much so they can act like a bully and pretend they don't have any feelings. But I hope that we can all learn to admit what we've done. I have to admit that I'm a racist. I still have racist things. I was trained to be a racist. I was trained to focus on differences and to not like differences. And my employers, the North York Board of Education, they spent a huge amount of money taking me through very painful trainings where I'm a racist. And, I understand when people say, well, don't help me. You just take stuff from me. You just use me. And it's my problem. Don't you butt into my problem. So recently I thought, I'm a white guy, and it's up to me to change what all my white brothers and sisters have put together over the last millennium. And even worse, I'm Scottish. I'm Scottish, my grandmother's side, my mother's side, my father's side. And you take a look at things that Scottish people have done around the planet, including my ancestors. Yick. So I make amends by trying to be different. And the very best amends for me aren't ones that bring up the pain for somebody else, the memory of it. I just try to be different. And I do whatever small acts I can as anonymously I can. Well, this isn't very anonymous, but I am trying to be an influencer. I'm trying to give the good energy to anybody who wants to change, choose to change and make a difference. And get together. My friend Toma Ramirez has a huge project has embarked on, and it's called Everything Matters. Everything. Yeah. So thanks a lot, and Costco.